Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see you. Hi, Yuki. So wonderful to see all of you. I'm glad that some of your cameras are on already. And yeah, so here we are. We're in our technically our last course of ACI. And so what I wanted to find out, I actually don't know many of you. Um, oh, see, just kidding. All right. Yeah, so yeah, the internet went down and froze. All right. I've been having some weird internet karma that they're doing lots of construction in the area and they're installing fiber, but they're also drilling holes in the ground and then cutting off everybody's internet. It's a weird thing. Anyway, sorry, I'm back now. So what I don't remember what I was saying. I was saying, yes, I was wondering where everybody was from, and Francisco was wondering if you could pull up when you have a moment. Don't answer the questions yet, but whenever you're ready, Francisco, I'd love. I don't know a lot of you, and many of you have been coming to these courses for, I don't know, this is 3 times 5. It's been 5 years for many of us. And some of you have joined along the way. And, there's a trajectory of where we're going, right? I had a long meeting yesterday with an insurance guy, trying to have to get some insurance policies for ACI. And he was like, Mike, he was like a total bro. He was just like, dude, this is so awesome. ACI is so amazing. And I'm like, I've never had anyone call me dude before, like an insurance guy. And I was explaining everything we're doing, and he was asking about the courses. And I was like, well, we have these 18 courses that are foundational, and then we have these. Francisco, I'm going to go on a trip and I'll come back to that. Um, and then we have 18 advanced courses. And I was waiting for him to be like curious about what the advanced courses are. Um, but he got me talking about a lot of it. And I was thinking about all of you yesterday, actually, many of you who have been with these classes for quite a while. And where are we going, right? And why are you here? I think it's really important to understand why you're here. Why did you show up today? Right. And I think it's a really important thing to think about. Oops, I forgot to take my trash out. Sorry, the trash truck's coming by. Too late. like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, and he asked me, it's like, well, why do people come to your courses? And I said, well, that's an interesting question. And then he wanted to know if we, do we teach to the general public? Do we teach to a specific population? Do we go into prisons? Do we, are we hired by hospitals? In my mind, I was like, well, yeah, that's what we're going to do. But I was like, well, why do people come to these classes? And I'm going to make a guess, right? But what I'd like to do is first, before we do that, Francisco, I'd like that one to be the second slide, like this, see people's answers. But before we do that, we have this new thing where we can kind of go up, we can kind of get a sense of where people are from, because I have no idea. Who are you? So me answering that question yesterday of, why do you come here? Like, I don't even know where you're from. So, Francisco, can you put up the map, please? So, in the chat, could you all just start typing in where it is you're from? Because then we're going to put this on a map. And then we're going to be able to see where we all are. It's not just about what I want to know, right? And it's really neat to see, everyone's, where like this, my friends, fellow, fellow, what's the word? Companions on this journey. This is where we all are, right? This isn't just some like Zoom call. you know it's like there are people around the world who share a similar goal or a similar idea. And um I think that's really the main point here, is that you can see where everybody here is, and afterwards we can download this map and we can put it in the chats, which is a nice thing for us to do, right? But I want you all to kind of get a sense of how international just this class is, right? Who is like, where are we from? Because look, if you want to go into the advanced courses, right? If you want to take the Diamond Way, right? It's not just about the teacher. It's also about, these are your friends. These are your built-in friends. These are the people who are going to accompany you on this journey, right? And these are the people that you're going to study with, and you're going to practice together with and learn from, and learn to see the world in a very, very different way. You see? So I want you all to think about this not as just, oh, here's a map with people on it. Isn't it wonderful that like we're so international? Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Great ACI. We're doing wonderfully, right? But I think it's even more important for you to know who are your Diamond Way friends. Who are they going to be? And maybe you don't have that aspiration yet, but if you're planning on studying with yours truly, which by the way, there's a lot that goes into that. And through this course, I'm going to start talking more and more about it. Like, what does that actually mean? You know, but if you have aspirations and these are your friends, these are the people who are going to take you there. These are the people who are you're going to be challenged with, you're going to cry with, you're going to celebrate with, right? Purification goes in all directions, from the worst to the most enjoyable. Okay. You see, so first of all, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. That's why I have you say goodbye to everybody at the end of class, which you all turn into a thank you to me, which I love. I swear to God, I love it. But it's not about me, right? It's about you, right? And the seeds that you're planting. So I want to go back to this next question. So next one, Francisco, and that is, why are you here? What brought you to these classes? Like, what is your motivation? Like, why? Okay, you're all around the world, right? All these cool different places. And then why did you come here? Like, what is your motivation? Francisco, you ready? That's a half thumbs up. All right, cool. All right, so in the chat, if you can just type in, like, why are you here? Like, what brought you here? Oh, I'm cool. That's amazing. Right? No, that's from, you know, right? You can type in your language as well. You don't have to type in English. And you can see all the different things that are popping up of why people are here. And then you can see words that are repeated, they get larger. Right? This word freedom is kind of in the middle here. Wisdom, love, hope, removing suffering, right? And these are your values, right? This is why you're here, why all of you are here. And I think, again, understanding who each of you is very, very important. So as that continues to filter in, and I just want to get started, like, what are we doing in this final ACI course? And if you're here for the first time, excellent. You have jumped in at a very, very key, important moment of our study of the entire path. And if you've been with us for a long, long time, this is a type of capstone course, because what we're trying to understand, and thank you, Francisco, what we're trying to understand here is a very simple question, but also one that has profound meaning for you in your path, right? In your evolution, right? And the question that we ask is, what did the Buddha really mean? And what the heck does that mean? Like, we have many, many texts, transcriptions, or memories of what the Buddha taught, right? Eva Mayam Shustram, right? Is that it? Something like that? Once I heard, right? And then the Buddha said many, many things. People, it's like perpetual question and answer, right? People ask the teacher a question and then the teacher gives an answer. And if you've been around long enough, and I'm talking about your own personal teacher, I'm not talking about the Buddha right now. But how do you interpret, and this is the key thesis we're going to learn in this class, because it's so important for your own evolution. It is incredibly important for you to understand the art of trying to understand what is it that your teacher really means when they say something to you. When somebody says something to you, especially a teacher, someone that you've determined is your teacher, and then you're just bopping along down the highway towards enlightenment, right? In your enlightenment car called your body and mind, right? And then your teacher's like, yeah, you should do this. Or they give you instructions to do something, or they challenge you with something. What do they really mean when they say what they say? I've had students criticize me saying, you said this here, but then you said this here. You're immoral. I'm like, oh, okay, good job. Fine. I'm immoral. Okay. It's like, no, that's not what's happening. Right. Of course, you have to evaluate the teacher's morality and make sure that they're doing things properly. But teachers will say different things at different times to different people, including yourself, depending on what maybe is the most relevant for you right now. And so this is a perfect example. Okay. Just 5 days ago, I was at my teacher's house. We were having lunch, right? We were having talk. We were just talking about stuff, right? And then I started asking about my own personal challenges. And we were going, I was talking about them and, trying to figure certain things out. And I know things are coming from seeds. I hope. I know things can change. But when you're in any kind of difficulty, most of those things go out the window because it hurts, or you're in pain, or you're confused. All of those things, right? And you can sit there on your couch and be like, oh, it's coming from seeds, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like that. Right. And so I was in one of those moments where I just needed, frankly, I just wanted some comfort when I reflected on it. I just wanted someone to give me a hug and tell me it was going to be okay. Right. But I'm going through my stuff and talking to them and bearing my soul, And my teacher said, they were like, maybe you should consider ordaining. And it literally, it was like, I felt like I was like stabbed in the back because I was like, that is the opposite of the feeling that I want right now. Like to me, that feels like, in that moment, it feels like, it felt like being sentenced to jail. Okay. Like it felt like a restriction. Okay. Right. Where I was just like, all I was talking about was the opposite. And I was like, I was really I mean, I wasn't upset at my teacher, but I was also upset at like, I was just like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. And so I went home, you know, kind of not feeling good. I was like, well, that was not a fun interaction. My tail between my legs and I was just sitting on the couch moping about it for a little bit. And I was like, okay, Tim, you're teaching ACI 15. What did the Buddha really mean when the Buddha said certain things? So maybe you should apply the same thing to this moment. What did the Buddha really mean? What did my teacher really mean? Right? What did they mean in that moment? And then it dawned on me, and it was beautiful because their one comment actually forced me to feel what it was that I was actually feeling. What they said forced me to have an experience of what it is I was actually struggling with. So then I could do the work to change that problem. Now I know how I felt. Now I knew where I was stuck. Now I knew what seeds were coming up. Because at the end of the day, no one else can do the work except you. Your teacher cannot do anything for you except point to what you need to do. All they can do is give you a roadmap, but you have to do the inner reveal. That's what I'm calling it today. You have to see it for yourself. You have to see your own samsaras. You have to see the ways in which you recreate your world over and over and over again so that you can purify it, so you can stop doing the things that hurt you and start doing the things that help you. So you can get to that word, that big word on the screen, freedom, right? So did my teacher really mean go take robes? Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're going to learn. And the answer was no, not in this moment. Okay. Venerable Timothy. Can you see that? Like, I don't know. Anyway, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if you see someone as your teacher, they're going to do things and say things that are designed to help you. And sometimes they might appear contradictory. They may not appear to be the 100% truth. Okay. And we're going to learn about that in the context, mainly in this course about emptiness. We're going to learn about what the Buddha presented emptiness in many, many ways. Many, many ways. And so, what did the Buddha mean when he taught a lower form of emptiness? And the question is, was he lying when he said it? You know, Or was he saying it for a particular purpose? Lena, I am incredibly jealous right now of you being on the beach. This is ridiculous.
Sorry,
No, no,
Mori.
no, don't
I'm so sorry.
don't don't apologize. It's making me super happy. I want the beach. Um, so if you can understand things from a different perspective, and you can understand what did the Buddha mean when he spoke the different turnings of the wheels, when he spoke different versions of emptiness, which, by the way, are different versions of emptiness that exist in your mind. And learning how to look at your own mind and say, hi, how am I seeing the world today? How am I seeing the world right now? And then if you're able to calm your nervous system just enough while you're in your affliction to be able to ask that question, then you have a possibility of changing it and even changing it rapidly and moving from a completely stuck jail cell, right? And then the walls can just vanish, you know. And the process is not always easy, and it's not something that always takes overnight or just getting a meal and having a nice rest. Sometimes that happens, but sometimes we have to dig deeper into the the jails that we put ourselves into, right? And so if we can learn how to interpret well, like what are they really doing? Then we learn that maybe our teachers who could be Buddhas, depending how you look at it, you know, they equally could not be Buddhas, emptiness. But if you see them in a suspicious way, if you see that maybe they could be offering something, like their motivation, then you see the motivation behind the apparent contradictions, right? And you see maybe it's out of love. Maybe they just told me maybe they just told me something that felt like a stab in the back, but it was exactly what I needed to break down the walls that I had built up around me unconsciously. You know, and that's the name of our game, right? Is understanding ourselves, understanding who we are, who is you, who are you, right? Who is the authentic you? Who is the person who is searching for freedom and love and wisdom and compassion, the one that wants to help others, right? It will become no surprise to you that the things that you are most passionate about are also the things you most struggle with. The jails that you put yourself into and discover will be the ones that you want to help other people get out of, right? And then as you learn to do that for yourself, others will be like, hey, I want some of that, you know. And then you just walk around and you just look at people and you're like, oh my God, I know this prison that you're in. I see it, right? And that's what enlightened beings do for us. They know our prisons perfectly. But sometimes it can take 10, 15, 20 years, lifetimes to open them up. right? One by one. Remove it one by one, you know. And when you get into some of your deeper difficulties, like the deepest things that you think are you know, that's, and then you start working there, then that's why you need each other. That's why you need community. That's why I ask for you to turn on your cameras so you can look at each other and say, I need help. I need support. Like, I can't do this by myself. You know, I call people now. I have a whole network of people in different capacities. Right? When myself gets too selfie, get it? You know, when myself gets too strong, you know, when it's holding on, when it's kicking back, when it's feeling ashamed, when it feels too difficult, right? All of those things are you. They're parts of you, right? And getting to know all of them. You know, your shame is part of you. Well, why do you have it? Well, go, let's explore, right? But until you get to know who you are, you can't get to know who you're not. That's a good t-shirt, Anastasia. There it is. That's actually, I pulled that directly from Pobonka. We're going to be studying that line in our living law room class, which starts at 8 o'clock, an hour and a half. Okay. Right. You have to know what you think you are, what you experience yourself. I would say even that you have to understand who you experience to experience yourself as you are, to be able to understand what you're not. And then that is what creates possibility. Right. So I celebrate you and everything that you are. You don't have to hide it anymore. You don't have to hide from yourself. And that's a painful process. It's a painful process to stop hiding from yourself and accepting all the things that are you. And your teacher's role is to open that up for you. So, and then you have to learn how to interpret what it is that they really mean, right? What the heck did they really mean when they said something to you? Okay. So that's what we're going to do in this class. And this is, while this is a capstone course, like this is like, you know, this requires a lot of understanding, right? A lot of practice to, and this is something that you'll utilize in all of the things you do from here on out. Because if you really want that freedom, you want that wisdom, you really want to be someone who can help other people, right? You have to you have to get into the ways in which your own mind deceives you, the way that your mind tricks you into thinking things are one way when they're another way. And every time you think you get it, it will find a way to avoid it. Welcome to being human. Okay. And then we should celebrate it and not fight it, but understand that it's helping us. It's designed. We think we're protecting ourselves. You think you're protect you we, I'm not saying you, we think we're protecting ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing, right? But understanding those ways of false protection that maybe worked for a little bit, maybe worked for a little time, but you can't tolerate it anymore, right? And that it happens to everybody, right? There's a point where you have to look at all of those things. and you have to do the inner reveal yourself. But you need each other. And these are the people, if you stick around, these are the people who you're going to commit yourself to, being like, we're going to do this together. We're going to do this elusive thing of trying to transform our bodies and mind into something extraordinary that's beyond just what we normally see in the world. So we can have a different world. And they say in the opening lines of the Vajrayogini text, it talks about the more degenerate the times become, the more powerful your practice is. The more powerful the seeds become, because you're doing the opposite to the mayhem that you see out in the world, the chaos that you see, the suffering that you see, the confusions, the pain. The more those grow, the more that you do something opposite to that, the more powerful it is. See? So that's why you want to be here today. Okay. I mean, all those other things, yes. Okay. That, yes, and. Okay. And I want to say to you all one last thing before we get into the actual study here, is that we don't have time. We have a very, very short window, and that window can close very quickly for some people, even the best people. Seeds are unpredictable. Seeds are powerful, and you don't know what's waiting. You don't know. One of many of you know, one of our volunteers, Ukrainian volunteers, who was highly active in managing all things Ukrainian for ACI, who was involved in YSI, who was a student of mine personally, as well as had other teachers, served her community. Beautiful soul. Wasn't even sick, right? And passed away in her sleep. Just goodbye. Like, goodbye, right? We don't have time. We don't know, right? And we don't know how much time we all have together. So, that's why we're here, right? We're here to change all of those things, change everything. So let's jump in and let's see where this course takes us. All right. So the beginning of all of our ACI courses, we do the what text are we going to study? Because it's important for us to know that we don't make this shit up. Right? We're pulling this directly from, we're pulling it from the words of the Buddha and through the traditions of commentaries and practitioners who have kept the ideas and practices alive as the world has changed, right? The core ideas are still the same. The way we present them in modern times is for modern people, right? But we want to know, where do all those ideas come from, right? So we're going to go back to our most famous character in all of our tradition. And Tracy, who is our most beloved character?
Jason?
Jason.
Who is Jason?
Jason Kappa, right? Who's Jason? The joke that I made back in ACI 1. Okay. It's not Jason, it's J. Sonkappa, right? And his dates are the most easy thing to remember. The most obvious password that everyone uses, 1357, all odd numbers, very easy to remember. Probably did it on purpose to be like, haha, you won't forget my birth date, right? I forget everyone else's birthday, but I don't forget his because it's easy to remember, right? An innovator of Buddhist thought who brought it essentially out of the Dark Ages and wrote something like 20,000 pages of material explaining everything about Buddhism. Very deep, very complicated, very prolific. And without him, we wouldn't have what we have today. All right. So he wrote a book. Hold on just a second here. Right. He wrote a book called the Changne Lekshe Ningpo. Changne Lekshe Ningpo. All right. And what does this mean? It's the essence of eloquence on the art of interpretation. And it's an interpretive title. Okay. And there's words here that I want you to know. All right. And you have to know a few of these words so you can understand what we actually mean here. Okay. And the most important words are trang, which is the first word. The second word is ne. So the first word trangwa and newa. All right. Trangwa and newa. And these mean it's a very, very important concept that this is exactly what we're going to be doing. And it means, when somebody says something to you, especially a teacher, okay, are they being literal or are they being figurative? All right. Where Trangwa means literal, genuine. Okay. Newa means figurative or provisional. Right. And when you put those two words together, Geshe Michael has translated it as the art of interpretation. Right. When someone says something to you, are they being 100% literal? Or are they trying to say something else? They mean something else by the words that they say. Like the classic example is that we use oftentimes is if I'm in the other room and someone is doing the dishes and they're making a lot of loud noises and everything seems to be like falling apart, you know, and then I scream from the other side of the other room and say, hey, don't forget to break my favorite glass. Do I mean go ahead and break my glass? No. What I mean is, will you please be a little bit more careful? Yeah, well, Roxana will interpret everything I say as literal and break my glass. Well, okay, great. Right. But you're saying something and you don't mean it. You don't mean break my favorite glass. You mean, will you please be a little bit more careful? Right. And sometimes you can't necessarily hear, and the whole point of that is being skillful to deliver a message. What message can the person hear right now? Right. What are they available to hear? You know, And so that's what we're talking about, the art of interpretation. Trane, learn that word, right? It's a great, if you don't learn any Tibetan, learn that one, right? These two words here in Tibetan, oops, here they are in the input. And there's a reason why I put the actual Tibetan up there, because that's what the language is. Okay. You're learning Tibetan, learn Tibetan. It's cool to start down here, but this is the language. Okay, so that's the main thing. That's the main text we're going to be studying from. Okay. And so, but more specifically, where we're going to go into, this whole course is going to be it's going to be a compare and contrast primarily of the two middle way schools, excuse me, the two Mahayana schools, the mind only school, and then the middle way school, which also gets broken into two ideas. But so we're going to be spending a lot of time understanding the differences in their presentation of emptiness. And the way you should look at this is, when I was in class, the first time I took ACI 15, I took it with Venerable Phil. Beautiful teacher. Old and kicking. He's like 86 years old now, 87, doing beautifully. And I was in a class with another student, and this student was pissed off. They were like, why are we studying the middle way? Excuse me, why are we studying mind only? It's not correct. It's not accurate. It's a lower view of emptiness. And they were upset, extremely upset, and like arguing. And I was like, well, do you think that Geshe Michael put it in course 15 because it's something we shouldn't learn? Like, like what? you know, and I battled with this student for quite a while because I said, look, you have to understand all the wrong ways that you understand emptiness to understand the right way. And all the wrong ways, and it's not wrong in the sense of like, you got it wrong on your test. That you is mind only at times. Your mind is mind only understanding of emptiness. Your mind is Sautantrika. Your mind is Swatantrika. Your mind is Abhidharma. Your mind is none of those things when you're having any kind of affliction. Your mind is off the charts, below the charts when you're upset, you're angry, all of those things. Because you're not even thinking about emptiness, right? I mean, at least I'm not when I'm upset. So understanding the various modes that your own mind takes can help you understand what the highest view is. It's not like your mind is wrong. It is your mind. And all of the steps that we go through is ways to elevate our understanding. It's how we go up the ladder, right? How do we make those extra, grab onto the next rung of the ladder? But the rung of that ladder better be stable before you move up to the next one. Because if the higher ones aren't stable, you're going to fall down. The ladder will collapse, right? And that's actually what happens to us. I'm Prasangika. I'm upper middle way. I understand that everything, including the raw data, is coming from me. Oh, okay. Thanks. You know, do you understand that? Sure, you can say the words, but what happens the moment you have any kind of negative emotion? You've fallen off that intellectual ladder. you've just, you just, that ladder goes way down. You just topple over. Right? Because that's the nature of it, you know. And so we understand step by step. That's a great comment, Heidi. Thank you. She understands. So for those of you who can't read English, Heidi's granddaughter just said, I don't know what she said, what I was talking about, but said, is this true? Is that true? Did he really argue even though he wants to become an angel? Right? If you want to become an angel, why would you argue? Right? Unfortunately, unfortunately, Dana, our negative seeds still have power over us. So yes, I want to become an angel, but I still have them. Right? And that's why we have to understand them. So we will get angry, we will get upset, we will have bad days. Right? But that's why we learn all of this. So we can so we can continue on that path. We can still believe that we can become an angel and then we transform ourselves. Right? So thanks. That's a really good question. That's really insightful. See, children understand more than us adults. You know, so my friend who argued against, you know, mind only, finally, 10 years later, she was like, oh, kind of was like, was arguing one day about how useful the mind only school was. And I just sat there like, aw, aw, you know, what my smart ass self wanted to be like, oh, so mind only school's useful, you know. And I wanted to be like, do you remember, you know, I I just was like, okay, you know. So don't see this as a waste of time. See it as a path. It's a path. It's the path. It is the path. All right. So primarily we're going to be studying a text that was, it's the seventh chapter, a book called the Dode Gondrel.
Dodegon.
Thank you for repeating it. That was perfect. Dode Gondrel. Okay. The commentary on the true intent, right? Gong, true intent. The commentary drell, gong means true intent, you know, of the sutras. Okay. And there's a chapter requested by a bodhisattva. And his name in Sanskrit is Paramata Samudgata, right? And so Paramata Samudgata came up to the Buddha. All right. Here's the crux, right? You know, this was supposed to be me, but you know, this is the idea, right? Here's Tim, right? Coming up to a Buddha. You know, I didn't have time to make Tim blonde, but whatever. Get it, right? Modern clothes, modern guy. You know, I like to think I'm that good looking, but you know, that's why I didn't change it, because you know, AI made it much better looking, right? And it's like, Buddha, I got a question for you. You know, when you first taught, when you know, you came out and you first taught, you taught that everything had a self nature. You taught about the categories of existence. You talked about the heaps. You talked about the four Arya truths. You talked about all of these things, right? And it was so helpful. It really helped me. But then, you know, you got up on Vulture's Peak and you were like, nothing has any nature of its own. Nothing has any nature of coming from one iota, one single atom from its own side. Now, Buddha, you look like a holy one, you know, put his hands together. You look like you understand, like you are enlightened. I believe you are. I think you are. But what the fuck? Excuse me. Like that's a Tim dramatization of the holy request made by Paramita Paramata Samugata. Okay, that's just Tim's Netflix dramatization. Okay, he was like, "What the hell is going on?" You said over here that things have some nature of their own. Things have a definitive nature of their own. But over here, you were like, nope, nothing. No ears, no eyes, no nose, no ears, no mouth, right? Nothing, no body, nothing has any nature of its own. Nothing has a definitive nature. Nothing is coming from its own side. Excuse me, but that don't make no sense, right? So, oh, this is, I'm sure it was more like, oh, Holy One, please help me, right? You know, Gen Z is going to be like, what's the phrase they use? Hold on. They would say, no cap. And I'll put it in the chat. Okay. I'm learning what these people, it means no cap means truthfully. Truthfully, be like, no cap, like Buddha, no cap. Just tell me how it is, right? What did you really mean? No cap, which is close to no capes, which is another joke of mine. Get it? No capes. If you've been part of my classes and I say no capes, we talk about no robes, right? Right. And I put a picture of someone in robes. So, haha, good job. But Buddha, no cap. Tell me how it is. Tell me what you really meant. What did you really mean by this? What did you mean when you said nothing has a definitive nature of its own over here, but over here you said everything does? Seems like you lying. Somewhere in there, you're lying. You're unethical. And I'm going to tell you you're unethical. You lied to me. Okay. And then the Buddha gives his answer. And in that answer, just in case you never come back, in that answer, the Buddha said, well, Paramata Samugata, that is a great question. Let me tell you what I really meant, right? And the student probably missed the wink, right? Because most students don't understand when the teacher's being figurative. I have sat in meetings and watched messages just fly over people's heads. And I'm like, oh my God, you have infinite patience, teacher. You just told them what they needed to do and they didn't even hear it at all. Right. So the Buddha's like, all right, dude, I'm going to tell you how it really is. Right. You probably made one of those like obnoxious faces. Right. I'll tell you how it really is no cap. Right. And he said, well, what I really meant, right. What I really meant was that, oh, some things have a definitive nature and some things don't. And I will explain to you what those mean. right? We'll get there eventually in this course. And so then in the sutra, the Buddha explains the things that have definitive nature and the things that don't have definitive nature. Shengwang's Kuntaks and Jungdrups, we'll talk about it. And if you've been in any of the mind only classes in the mixed nuts, you'll know what we're talking about. But we're going to go through it slowly so we can understand specifically. So the student's like, oh, you mean that some things have definitive nature and some things don't? And the Buddha's like, yes, that's exactly what I mean. And then the birth of the mind only school, right? And so that student was like, oh, okay, got it. Some things don't, some things do. Now I know what you really meant, right? Good. Now I'm good as a student. And Buddha's like, yeah, you're great. Go ahead, go study. Go understand Kuntaks and Shengwangs and Yongdrups. Go study that. Then you're going to understand. You're going to become an angel if you understand this. And the student's like, yay, right? And goes off and studies, right? Did the Buddha lie? Did the Buddha tell the full truth? Let me tell you something. If you understand the mind only school well enough, you can, yeah, that's enough to see emptiness directly. And it's also enough to practice Tantra, to practice Diamond Way. You don't need the higher way. Get it? Okay. Jason Kappa said that. I didn't say it. Jason Kappa said it. You know, so you have to. So this bodhisattva made a humble request. Buddha, you don't make any sense. Help me understand. Oh, the sun's coming in. I'm sorry, you can't see me. We'll just get it. Trua. That's a nice word for the light coming through. If you want to learn a word in Tibetan. But so the bodhisattva was confused and said, I don't understand what you mean. Help me. And then the Buddha said, okay, I'll help you. I didn't really mean what I said. What I mean is really this. Then you have to interpret when the Buddha said, this is what I really mean. Do they really mean what they really mean? You can't even trust the Buddha when they say, oh, that's what I really meant. And so we're going to learn how to trust the words. Do they mean something else? And why would they mean something else? What value do they have that way? And so, by the way, I just want to point out that Paramata Samudgata is not just some idiot bodhisattva who's like, oh, he doesn't understand the higher middle way. Oh, God. So he has to get the mind only school because that's all that he's capable of. In Tibetan, Paramata Samudgata's name is Dundam Nyandak Pak. Dundam Yandak Pak. What do those words mean? First word, here you got the Pak. That is short for realized one, short for Arya. Dundam means ultimate. All right. We have ultimate in the name. We have Bakba in the name. Yandak can mean many different things. It can mean reality, right? It can mean, Dak means pure, right? It means true, right? So the realized one of highest reality is this guy's name. Sound like an idiot to me. Get it? You know, so this guy's not just some random bodhisattva. Maybe he had something else in mind when he even asked the question himself, right? And so then the other text we're going to study, I did not put it in here, so I apologize. is it's called the sutra taught at the request of the realized being, never ending wisdom. Okay. So we have one sutra, and we're going back to the sutras on purpose. Right. We're going back to the sutras on purpose because the Buddha said different things at different times. Right. In the commentary in the true intent, in the 7th chapter, we get the presentation of the mind only school. And then in the sutra, requested by the realized being named never ending wisdom, teaches the upper middle way, the Prasangika point of view. So we're relying upon sutras. We're relying upon two different things the Buddha said. Which one is correct? Stay tuned. We will figure it out. Right? Okay. And so why? So the main question here is, why are we doing this? Right? What's the point? Like, what is really the point of emptiness? What is the point of studying that nothing as highest view? Maybe it's not the highest view, right? That nothing has any definitive nature of its own, right? What does that do for us? Like, what is the point? What is the point of studying emptiness? What is the point of understanding how seeds work? What is the point of is to understand the jail that you're putting yourself into? Self-created bars all around you, at in a river, at the bottom, flowing uncontrollably. And there's sharks on the outside, just in case if you wanted to know. This is a special river. Okay. What's the point of that? So is that, and I said it in the beginning, and I'm just going to repeat it again, is that, we're wandering in our own suffering. We're wandering around, wondering why it is that we continue to suffer. We wander around in this world, wondering why it is that good people die young, why many people in political leadership seem to be hurting others and not helping them. Why do I see that? Why do they get to live a long life and then someone who's really good does not? Right? Not absolutely, but things don't make sense. Right? There's no signal on your phone, right? You can't find your way. You stare at your phone all day long trying to find the answer to your problems. You scroll Instagram, watching video after video, shorts trying to explain to you the reality of this, and you're just stuck in the prison of your own phone, right? You're stuck in the information that's being presented to you, and you don't even know why. You see, so why do we study emptiness? It's because beings wander around. The Buddha said this, because they have no knowledge of the way of emptiness. Okay. They're just staring at a phone that has no signal. You're trying to get the map. Come on, get down. I know. Come on. Fat cat tried to sit in the chair with me. There's not enough space for both of us. I'm sorry. We're trying. So we're wandering around with a cell phone trying to get places on a map that has, and a phone that has no signal, using a map that doesn't make any sense. Right. But the idea is that those with compassion use skillful means and give a million different reasons to bring them into it. Right. Meaning they explain emptiness in a million different ways to help you get a signal on your phone, right? Millions of ways to talk about emptiness, and each one will bring you closer and closer to freedom from your own suffering, and also to help others achieve that same freedom as well, right? So really the idea behind everything we're going to do in the next 10 classes is to understand what is the true meaning of emptiness, right? what is the what are all the different ways to understand it, from elementary school through getting your PhD, basically. What are all of those different ways to elevate ourselves step by step, to open up the jail cell, to dissolve it? How about let's just dissolve it? Like, I don't want to like take it out bar by bar. I just want to dissolve it, right? Take away the chains that are around your own legs that you can't even see. You don't know that you're chained. Actually, you do know. And that's why you're searching. You're searching for an answer, but we're not necessarily searching the right place. Right? And so we have to understand the three turnings of the wheel really well. Turning of the wheel just means teaching. Turning the wheel of the Dharma, trying to get people to reach freedom. And so we have to understand what each of those are, 1, 2, and 3. Why are they different? And why are they taught this way? Right? If the second turning of the wheel is the correct one, why is it the second one and not the third one? And those people who really subscribe to the mind only school, the mind onlyists, right? They'll say, well, ours is the true one, and 1 and 2 we're building so you can get to the third one. So which one's accurate? Which one's literal? Which one's figurative? And is there a way to even talk about the second school in a figurative way, even when the second school could be interpreted as literal? You see, there's a lot going on here, and why? Like, why do all of these things? Why is all of this happening? And if you can sort it all out, separate it, understand all the different arguments in your own mind, then you can watch how your own mind is those things that you're spinning around in one of them. And the path is designed to spin in a certain way so you can unlock it all. And I would probably make the argument that the reason it's taught this way, when we would say in the upper middle way that the second turning is the literal turning of the wheel, is that you first learn about how everything has a definitive nature. You learn about karma. You learn about the 4 Arya truths. You learn about the categories and the heaps, the body and mind. Stupid translation. People call it the aggregates. Whatever, right? Body and mind, right? You learn about all of those things, and you start learning how to be a better person. You start learning how to understand seeds. You start understanding cause and effect, right? Then the Buddha goes, dun, da, 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 nothing has any nature of its own, and then blows up everything, right? And then you're like, how do I, if nothing has any nature of its own, how can I believe in cause and effect? You just told me that nothing has any nature of its own. I'm destabilized. And then the Buddha goes, oh, just kidding. I was just using that as a way to get you to understand how it really is. And then you go to the mind only school and you're like, some things have definitive nature and some things don't. And then you go, oh shit, thanks, Tim. That I feel so much better now. And then you recognize the internal contradiction that's happening in the third school, which then pushes you at the third turning, which pushes you into the second one. And then pushes you upwards, pushes you into an understanding of what it really means to say that nothing has any definitive nature. You see, because it can feel like an extreme at first. But just saying that nothing has a definitive nature doesn't say anything about how cause and effect works. Dependence works. Don't ever think that your vows aren't important. Don't ever think that your ethics aren't important. But how it works, right? That would be my argument. All right, if anyone cared. So when we're talking about this idea of literal and figurative, there's three different things that we mean, right? Great. Right? What does it mean to say things are literal, things are figurative? What does it mean to say, you know, like what are we talking about? What are we evaluating? Right? Are we evaluating everything or are we evaluating some things? Right? So what are the things that we're evaluating? So the first thing is we're evaluating based on the level of expression. Do the words that are spoken and their intended meaning match? Does the words that they say mean what is in the speaker's mind? Like, hey, would you go break my favorite cup? Did I really mean break my favorite cup? No, I didn't. But I said different words, right? So on the first level of understanding is you have to look at it from, do the words match the intended meaning? So if you have a teacher, you should always be asking the question after you're done being upset about what they said. Right? After you had your emotional reaction and blah, blah, blah. Right? Then you say, all right, did their words match what they meant? And then you start playing the game of pen chu toy. Right? Pen chu toy. Do they have to be what they words are? Well, no, they could be something else. Well, what could be the intention behind it? And if they are a Buddha and they're helping me, how are they trying to help me? Right? And normally that question will lead you from being angry about what was said to crying that they were actually helping you. Time and time again, that's been my experience. Wow, that was a stupid meeting. Well, that sucked that they said that to me. Can't believe that happened. Right? And then all of a sudden, when you think of the intended meaning, then you go from irritation to emotional overwhelm in my case. Like that was beautiful. All right. Second level is the level of reality. Does the way that the object appears and the way the object is match each other? Does the way the object appear match the way the object is? And unless you are a eighth level bodhisattva, the answer to this question is no. Perfectly. mostly perfectly at 8th level Bodhisattva. Okay. Because the way things appear in the way they are do not ever match because you think they're coming from their own side. Even an Arya who has seen emptiness directly can't stop the tendency to see things as coming from their own side after they see emptiness directly. They immediately know they're wrong in the perception, but they can't stop it. Right. So this is depressing. Everything you see is figurative, unless you're an 8th level Bodhisattva or above. And I don't know who you are. Even your teacher, even the words of your teacher, even the teachings that you get from your teacher, even the teachings that you discovered later were intended to open your heart and they were not intended to hurt you. That's an appearance. It's coming from seeds and you don't even see it. You can intellectualize it, right? Now, if you're saying that your understanding is coming from seeds, you're closer to being literal, but are you seeing it that way? Right. That's why I have glasses here. And the third level of figurative and literal is a level of understanding. Okay. And I kind of blurred these two together. And they kind of are blurred together, but it's helpful to understand them separately. This is specific is do we understand the two realities, Kunsop, Denpa, and Dundam Denpa? Deceptive reality, ultimate reality. Do we understand those two realities with an accurate state of perception, with the sema, a pramana, right? Do we see those two realities as literal, or do we understand them only approximately? Right. And this is where we're playing. This is the playground that we're in. We are approximating the literal, we are approximating excuse me. We are approximating the correct perception of reality. The accurate state of perception of reality all the time, especially when we're in classes like this, especially when we're thinking about karma and emptiness. Until you have that experience directly of it, it's an approximation, right? We're working at the level of figurative. We're working at the level of approximate, newa, to get to trangwa, right? When you're having an accurate state of perception of the two realities, it's actually only a Buddha can have an accurate state of perception of the two realities simultaneously. But when you see emptiness directly, you're having an accurate state of perception of Dundam Dempa, of ultimate reality. Okay. But this is our goal, is we're approximating our understanding. By approximations, we're getting closer to accuracy, closer and closer. And that's what the whole point of the mind only school is. That's closer to that. And because we're basically using false reality to we're using it against ourselves. It's like using the matrix against itself. To get out of the matrix, you have to use the matrix, right? To get out of the suffering, you have to use the tools that we have. So I think Dindam is that, and then Kunsuk is RDCOH. I think it's that. Hold on. I don't exactly remember. I think it's that. Kunsuk. Not, don't ask me spelling questions in class because I'll get stuck. Let's see here. I don't know. Someone else who knows Tibetan. What's Kunsok? That's not the exact spelling. Thank you. There it is. There's a misspell. There it is. Kunzum, and let's just change that to. I was close. There. It's fine. No, you can ask. You just know how to get me distracted. Consulting. Yeah. And Denpa is spelled like this. All right. Okay. Thank you. So our whole point is to approximate closer and closer and closer to the highest view. And I'm not talking about just view as understanding, view as perception, view as, let's don't call it perception, view as experience, experiencing it as it. The experience is it. All right. So the whole idea here is that we are getting closer and closer and then understanding, look, if you want to go into Diamond Way, you have to understand emptiness. You have to have a very strong approximate understanding of it. Because to do Diamond Way practice, it doesn't work otherwise. Along with all the other things like taking care of other people, planting good seeds, and you have to serve others in a deeper way in Diamond Way as well, which plants different seeds too. Especially when you're planting them in a Diamond way. But it won't have any effect if you don't understand emptiness, if you don't have an approximate understanding of it. It won't make any sense. It won't do anything if you're looking at a sadhana and you think the sadhana is coming from itself. If you think the words have any power, if you think your visualizations have any power. If you're trying to transform yourself in a self-existent way, you won't. Impossible. You see? And if you don't have a strong understanding, I'm sorry, but you will have to wait. And I'm going to be very tough on this. And I know it's not polite, but it's, there's a deep yoga-ing that happens. Yoga means to join, huge, right? It's a joining, right? Teacher and student, right? And if someone's not ready, then we say not yet, and we continue on, right? And it's okay if you're not ready. It's okay. Like it's not a sign of, and this is the thing you also have to understand. It's not a sign of accomplishment or rejection if you are or are not ready. And if you understand what I said, then maybe you'll be ready. Okay. So, but really, it comes down to a deep wish, and it's one deep wish. I'm tired of the jail that I'm in. I'm tired of the jail that everyone else is in, and I want to do it faster. That's all. If you have that wish, then it's okay. Then all the other stuff works. All right. So don't worry. And I have a plan of how we're going to catch everybody up over the next 15 months, and I will announce it a little bit later. Okay. But understand that the reason that ACI 15 is ACI 15 is that it's a preparation for Diamond Way. It's a preparation to understand your own mind and who you are, who you thought you were, and who you can be. Okay. So you aren't able to finish all of homework 1 because I didn't finish the class. Typical. Yay. And we'll continue on Monday. I'm very happy that 112 of you are here today. And it makes me very, very happy that people want to do this. You know, I've seen how it's transformed so many people, because it's not just about you wanting to do this. It's about the potential that I see that's going to happen when all of you become teachers. All of you will have your own classes. All of you will have your own students. All of you will pass this along for the people that need it. So this is much bigger than 112 people. Much, much larger. All right. So we'll take a half-hour break. You're not being kicked out, Tracy. It's meant to inspire. But it's also meant to understand, it's serious. Like, you have to want to do it and do it for the right reasons. Otherwise, it's can be a bad karma. And we'll talk about that later. So yeah, let's take a half-hour break. We'll be back for Lam Rim. We're going to be going deep into God. It's so hard to translate emptiness. Thank God I have a teacher teaching us to do it. But we're diving into the depths of the emptiness chapter of the Gift of Liberation by the esteemed Pabonka Rinpoche. So come back in a half hour to learn about how to incorporate these ideas. It's not a coincidence that we're doing ACI 15 and that we're also talking about gotchas, the things that we deny in the next text. There is a deep connection between this. All right. Say goodbye to each other. Here we go. It's going to be a whirlwind and it's going to be fun. Say goodbye. See you soon.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for participating.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, bye.
Thank you.
Danke.
Adios.
Auche Vembo e Haratim.
Bye-bye.